And now I'm going to go live on Facebook. Hello, everyone. It's listening to the recording. Let me get my Facebook live here and we'll get started. Air conditioning's working. I don't think so. Can y'all hear that air conditioning in the background on me? Or no?
I don't think so.
No, it's not that bad because it's hot here and I hate to turn it off. Okay, we're live on Facebook. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Roger Paul, and welcome to our meeting. We are doing a special series on Jesus. We have been for the last 6 meetings. We stopped our normal just reading through the book to do this series. I get inspired to do a series on Jesus and his real mission in life. Just kind of straighten out some of our misconceptions of what Jesus was here for. And that's what these meetings have been about the last 6 times. And so we're going to continue on with that today. And this is out of paper 119. This is the bestowals of Christ, or the bestowals of Michael, Jesus. And we'll start up from here and keep going with what we were talking about last time. All right, so let's say a little prayer and we'll get started. Father, thank you for bringing us together tonight. Thank you for this wonderful revelation that we might enjoy it, learn a little bit, and take it to the mansion worlds with us. We thank you for all the many opportunities you give us in life and to apply this information you've given us. And we can't say enough how much this has changed our lives and made our lives better. Pray that you'll watch over this world and help straighten out some of the lying and deceit that's going on. It's pathetic sometimes. Pray that you'll watch over us, bless us, and keep us in line. We say this in the name of your son, Michael, Jesus of Nazareth. Amen.
Amen.
Amen and amen. Okay, let's start out with, this is paper 119, paragraph 2, and we'll start out letting my wife read.
The attribute of bestowal is inherent in the paradise sons of the universal Father. In their desire to come close to the life experiences of their subordinate living creatures, the various orders of the paradise sons are reflecting the divine nature of their paradise parents. The eternal Son of the paradise Trinity led the way in this practice, having 7 times bestowed himself upon the 7 circuits of Havona during the times of the ascension of Grand Fonda and the first of the pilgrims from time and space. And the eternal Son continues to bestow himself upon the local universes of space in the persons of his representatives, the Michael and Havona sons.
Okay, we read this last time, but I don't think we spent enough time on it. So I'm just kind of hit a couple things, right? First of all, the important part of this is that the paradise sons basically reveal the nature of their parents. That's the very first sentence in this paragraph, right? And the nature of God the Father and God the Son are what? Love, right? Love and understanding, mercy. All right. And it stated in this paragraph also that the eternal Son led the way for the paradise sons, showing them how to do this by bestowing himself 7 times on the 7 circuits of Havona. And they say that he did this during the ascension of Grandfather, the very first being ever to make it to Havona and start the ascension plan through Havona. And it's interesting here because it says the eternal Son. Notice it's not talking about a paradise son. It says the eternal Son continues to bestow himself on the local universes and the persons and the representatives of both Michael and the Havonal Son. So if you want to see what the eternal Son is like, all you have to do is look at a paradise son, either a Havonal or a creator son, and you know the nature of the eternal Son, right? And it's interesting because our creator son, Michael or Jesus, revealed the will of the Father during his final bestowal here on earth. And my wife and I were talking about this just this morning during breakfast, that, we fail to realize that all the creator sons create different types of beings, right? Human beings. So a Michael son might appear as what? A gray, a little green man looking like a Nordic. It could look like anything, right? Because when they go to the planets that they bestowed themselves on, they look like the beings of that planet. So the different merits of different types of being in the universe at one time or another get a paradise son, either a vonal or a paradise or a creator son. And so during that bestowal, just like Michael looked like a normal human during this life, they're going to look like whatever types of beings are on that planet. So when you get to the mansion worlds and you get to view some of the information about some of the other paradise sons, they may look like what? They may look like just about anything, right?
That's a new thought for me.
Years. So we don't think about things like that, right? Because we're going to meet all these different types of beings when we get to the mansion worlds. So don't always expect to see Jesus in a beard and long hair and a robe, and then he might look totally different to us.
Could be one of those lizard people they talk about.
Yeah, you never know. It was interesting today. Just before the meeting, I was listening to something on one of the YouTube channels, and the guy was talking about, I'm not going to say who it is because y'all all know who he was, but he was talking about how the world has changed the norm for our moral beliefs. And that's true. Our morals are, really, it's changed dramatically over time. And we don't think our government and people around us don't think anything about lying and cheating and not doing what 100 years ago people would have been killed over, right? Good example of that is what's going on with all these child abductions and things like that. 100 years ago, if you'd have touched a child inappropriately, they would have hung you up, on a tree somewhere. So our moral standards have changed to such a degree that it was time for this revelation, was it not? It was time for God to say, hey, this is what you're supposed to be doing, not going down the direction you're going. And it was funny that they revealed this to us in 1934 and 35. It was really before this really got kicked off and really started happening, because it really started after World War II. You think about that, right? So to think about the timing of the book itself and how the midwayers are assigned to help us along. And part of that has been the Midwayer Commission bringing this book to us. And the other part has been the commission that was sent down from Uversa to help out with it. So even though we're way off kilter, there's hope for this planet, because people like us that are trying to get the right direction and going the right way are still here, right? Any way you look at it. So there's always hope, right? Hopefully so. And I'm going to try not to say right 2 million times today, okay?
Oh, that's the third time.
Call me on it at any time. I know. All right. No right. Let's go on to the next one. Neil, would you like to take the next one?
Sure. Let's see. When the Eternal Son bestows a Creator Son upon a projected local universe, that Creator Son assumes full responsibility for the completion, control, and composure of that new universe, including the solemn oath to the Eternal Trinity not to assume full sovereignty of the new creation until his 7 creature bestowals shall have been successfully completed and certified by the Ancients of Days of the super universe of jurisdiction. This obligation is assumed by every Michael son who volunteers to go out from paradise to engage in universe organization and creation.
Isn't it interesting that not only all the creator sons have to go through the 7 steps of bestowal, right, to claim sovereignty of their local universe, but also it says who volunteers to go out. So these Michael sons volunteer to go out and do these, create these local universes. So that begs the question of this. If they volunteer to go out, is there tons and tons of creator sons that don't go out?
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Good question.
That's a good question. You
Yeah.
know, maybe they're staying back for the adventure in the outer space levels. We don't know. They only tell us about the 700,000 that were created for the 700,000 local universes, right? They also tell us about 300,000 more that's in reserve. Those are probably training to be the first ones to go out into the to the 4 outer space levels, right? But they tell us for sure that there's one for every local universe, and we know that there's 700,000 for the local universes. There's 100,000 for each of the 7 super universes. All right, but they have to take an oath not to assume full sovereignty of their creation till they finish this. Now, what does that mean? That means that if they do not stick by their oath, what happens? They get cut off.
They get
Yeah.
what?
They get cut off from the local universe, which is a very, very bad thing, from the super universe. That's what I mean. So if a Michael son assumed full authority without going through his 7 bestowals, then he would be cut off from the super universe. So what would that mean to his creative mother spirit? That
She'd
means
be cut
all
off
the
too.
circuits that go out through her would be what?
Totally.
Severed.
That's never happened, has it?
Never happened, right? But because they have to take this oath, it's free will that could happen, right? Never has an eternity, but it's a possibility. That's the point here.
So are you saying that this
Yep.
would be the same as when
Lucifer rebelled.
huh? People that just like this,
Malagasy.
when Lucifer rebelled,
That's
Michael
right.
would be the Michael would be cut off. What would happen to him?
No, the Michael would be the Michael would not be cut off. Only that local system would be. And that's exactly what happened to us. We got put in quarantine, right? 250,000 years ago. When Lucifer rebelled and Calagasta rebelled, the 86 planets or 87 planets, I get that wrong all the time, but the 86 planets that followed Lucifer into rebellion were put in under quarantine. So at that point, the celestial circuits were cut off from those planets. And we have record of that in the Urantia book. There's a big long story about how the circuits were severed from the super universe. So the circuits that could not be severed had to be there, were the only ones left. So the communication to other systems and the system capital and all these other planets was stopped. Okay, so that brings a question to mind. Since we've been having all these, and this has just happened in the last 100 years or so, we've been having all these communications, well, since 47, from other beings, supposedly from other planets. If that's the case, has the quarantine been lifted?
Seems like it. That would be.
It's possible.
I
always
think it
thought
has
though
been.
that if the quarantine is listed, we should be able to see the celestial broadcast again,
What
which
I was thinking.
supposedly was here. Yeah.
Or hear
And
them.
there's no indication of that yet, is there? Has any of y'all saw a celestial broadcast? I haven't,
Oh,
you know?
Maybe there's
Would
an
you
app.
mind telling
So-
me how am I supposed to recognize it? Which channel is it on?
Is there an app for it?
I mean,
No,
and
but
here's
from
my
what
point. Here's my,
they
may I make it a
say,
point?
yeah,
Am
go
I
ahead.
making a point? You're right.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with you. Because if we were still isolated, the UFOs wouldn't be coming here. They'd say,
No, they wouldn't be talking
screwing-
to us anyway. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And so, but that's happening. But I also think God works slow. Okay.
yeah.
Was it 1,000 days of ours is one of his days or something like that? I mean, so
Mhm.
from 1940, I was born in 1945. I'm 77 years old.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not a long
Right.
time. In God's terms, when he goes billions of years. So
It's
we
nothing.
could be,
Yeah.
he just hasn't turned the radio on, I guess. I don't know.
Well, you may be right, Gary. You remember when Van and Amidon stood up before Calagasta and said, "This is rebellion," and he sent a request into the Most Highs. It was 7 years before they got an answer to it. 7 years, because the circuit was severed when everything was put under quarantine. So for 7 years, he had no communication from the central office, if you would, from Satania or the Most Highs in the constellation. So it took him 7 years to get the message to him by what? Celestial angels, right? That's how the message came back, not through the circuit. Okay. So maybe it's been restored, but they hadn't clicked the switch to turn the broadcast back on for us, as they say, right? It might be another 10 or 20 years, who knows? But anything is possible. The thing that makes me wonder what's going on, though, is this communication. It's been documented over and over. And I mean, if you get on YouTube, there's person after person after person say that this person has talked to beings outside this planet, and that person has, and it's all military stuff. And we've just been lied to for years and years and years now. This is what I was talking about at the beginning of the meeting tonight. Under a moral, just system, that should have never happened, right? We should have been informed, all along the way. But we've been going down this road, and when you go down an evil road, what happens? Evil things happen, and that's exactly what's happening on the planet. What other time period have you ever heard of so many people molesting children? I mean, it's just, is that not the most insane thing you've ever heard of? Right? So it makes you wonder what's going on. But it also makes me wonder, because I remember being a good Baptist minister, that in the book of Revelation, it talks about that when Jesus comes again, that every eye shall see and every ear shall hear, right?
yeah.
When Jesus comes again. So it makes you wonder, if the celestial broadcast is restored, will not that be the same situation? Will not every person on the planet know at the same time that we are back inside the celestial circuit? Seems like that would
I
be
don't know.
logical, doesn't it?
I don't know. But here's another question is, I mean, how are we going to recognize it? I mean, I'm assuming if God will say,
I'm-
he'll introduce himself, maybe, hey, I'm God.
Well, it won't be God the Father, it would be the Creator Son, right? Because he's
Yeah.
the sovereign.
Yeah.
But if he made an announcement and every eye heard and every eye saw and every ear heard, it would, we don't know what the celestial broadcast is. It could appear like a hologram in front of every human being on the planet, because we're all encircuited by what? The creative mother spirit, the 7 adjutants,
Roger.
and the thought adjuster, right? Yes.
When he comes again, it'll be spiritual.
Yes. But because of the mechanical material controllers, they are able to make us able to see both Urantia beings and spiritual beings. Just like, think of it this way, the midwayers can make themselves visible. The secondary midwayer is easier than the primary midwayers, but they can do that. But they have to use the facilities of the mechanical controllers and the power centers to do this. Okay, so if that's the case, then when Jesus comes again, it will be the mechanical or the power centers of the controllers that will allow everyone to see Jesus at the same time and hear his voice. So I believe that's what will happen. That's why I'm wondering if part of the circuit has been restored. I mean, not restored, but they're allowed to make communication with us because it's been going on. Okay, but the full restoration of the circuit may not have happened yet. Make sense? So that's why
Well,
this is
what
so
I'm
important.
thinking is these, what I was thinking is with these CE5 app that's available now on the iPhone.
Yes.
It's
Yeah,
going to
Dr.
teach.
Greer's app. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to teach people to communicate with extraterrestrials, and in my view, it's kind of a preparation for the coming broadcast from the,
It may be, Letch. May very
Yeah.
well be. I have the app on my phone. I haven't tried to connect with anybody yet, but I stay so busy getting ready for meetings and doing stuff like that. I don't really have a lot of time to go out and try to talk to aliens, and
So
put
which-
on my list of things to do. Yeah.
Which app are you saying?
CE5, it's an app to basically communicate with aliens in the cosmos. And it's
CE
basically a meditation type thing where it teaches you how to meditate at a level where you're able to calm your mind to the point where you can do it. It's the same process for subnipulant wake and suggestion and hypnosis. It's the same concept in
Yeah, I've got
transporting yourself to another place. And there's people out there say that they've used the same technique to see the far side of the moon and the bases there and all this stuff. So we know it's real. It's just how accurate it is, we can't say. And if you can't prove it, you can't say it's 100% accurate. And the best guy that they know of that's out there on YouTube only claimed a 65% accuracy on his projecting himself to other places, and he died this year. So, there are people that can do that.
What's the app?
It's called
CE5.
CE5.
Well, I couldn't
Yeah.
hear you.
Just
E5?
CE5. CE5.
go to your iPhone, press the button and punch in CE5.
Yeah, if you do a search CE5, you'll find it. Dr. Greer is.
Oh, that
it's
is his app? Oh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'll find a lot of information on YouTube on it too. You can go out there and watch the videos on it on YouTube, because there's whole groups of people that get together that are communicating with these alien beings in groups all over the world. They've seen them appear before them. Most of them are celestial type appearances, but they're not physical, but they're celestial. So it makes you wonder if it's not the celestial connection rather than a physical being type thing. Remember this, and I know I'm getting way off base of our lesson here, but remember this. All reality is not about the material world. All reality is about the spiritual world, okay? And the problem with our existence on this planet is we've grabbed a hold of the physical world to the point where we have discounted the spiritual world. Right? Or not right? But it's the spiritual world that's the base for everything. Without spirituality, without the spiritual world, there is no backbone for the rest of it, because all the material world, all the Urantia world, and all the spiritual world is all based on what? Spirituality. Okay, that's why this book is so important. I say this over and over again. The Urantia book, for people who've never heard of it before out there, the Urantia book is named that because the rest of the 7 super universes knows our planet by the name of Urantia. That's the name of our planet, just as if you said Earth. Okay, but the Urantia book was made so that the inhabitants of Urantia finds their spiritual connection in this life. That's what it's for. Well, it's the most important book you can read. And when you read it, you're going to find out that God the Father loves you. God the Father never required a sacrifice for your sin. Jesus didn't come for your sin. Jesus came to do his 7th bestowal. Jesus came for the salvation of all the planets, not just ours. Okay, he didn't save you from your sin. He saved you in the sense that he showed you the way, the pathway to your paradise ascent. Make sense? That is much more important than your little piddly sins that when you leave this planet, you won't even remember anymore. Okay? I call them piddly because most of us don't go out and murder people and you know, abduct children and that kind of stuff. Most of us live these lives where we lie a lot and that kind of stuff, which we should never do, but it's not to the point where it's non-forgivable. According to the Bible, even, there are no non-forgivable sins, even murder. You can be even forgiven of that, even though it's probably one of the worst things you can do. Okay, so I've preached enough. Let's go on to the next slide. I can preach a little bit more. All right, here we go. Next slide, right? Rodney, would you take the next one?
Sure. The purpose of these creature incarnations is to enable such creators to become wise, sympathetic, just, and understanding sovereigns. These divine sons are innately just, but they become understandingly merciful as a result of these successive bestowal experiences. They are naturally merciful, but these experiences make them merciful in new and additional ways. These bestowals are the last steps in their education and training for the sublime task of ruling the local universes in divine righteousness and by just judgment.
Okay, and interesting that they're innately sympathetic, just, and understanding. They're also what? Naturally merciful. Guess who they get that natural merciful from? God the Father and God the Son. Right? If God the Father and God the Son is naturally merciful, do you think it would make sense that they would send you to hellfire and damnation through eternity? Doesn't sound very merciful to me. Okay. All right. These questions should have been asked 2,000 years ago when Jesus was here. Why they weren't? Maybe they were, and that they just didn't get in the Bible. I don't know.
I think
All
that's
right.
the
But
case.
I think that's the case too. But these bestowals, these 7 bestowals of all the types of beings that the Creator Sons have created, these bestowals are the training ground and their education and training for them to learn what it's like to be us. Okay, to be the angels, to be the Melchizedeks, to be the Verandadeks, to be the Lenonandeks. Okay, and doing this, they gain experience so that they know how to rule their own domains. So most of the stuff that comes up doesn't have to be kicked up to who? The Ancients of Days, who are the rulers of the seven super universe. Okay, makes sense? Makes sense to me. Okay. The bestowal will of deity. I stuck this slide in here from when we did this 119 a few years ago, and it shows the connection of which parts of the paradise Trinity deity that the bestowal sons emulate during that bestowal, right?
Right.
And I'm going to go through every single one of these because these are very, very important. So we look at the first bestowal here as a Melchizedek, subject to the will of the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. That was the very first bestowal of Jesus, right?
Mhm.
All right. So during his first bestowal, Michael or Jesus showed the will of the God the Father, God the Son, and God the Spirit. In the second bestowal, as a Lenonandek son, he showed the will of just the Father. See where the lines go here? You can't see my finger. See where the lines goes to the Father and the line goes to the Son on the second bestowal?
Yeah.
On the third bestowal, he showed the will was subject to the will of the Father and the Spirit. See those lines there? On the fourth bestowal, as a seraphim, he showed the will of the Son and the Spirit. Now, why as a seraphim would it be the Son and the Spirit? Think about this. Everything has a reason. The
Hold on, I'm trying to-
seraphim are creatures of whom?
The eminent spirit.
The infinite spirit, the local universe mother spirit, right? All the seraphim are created by the local universe mother spirit, and she gets that input from the infinite spirit, number one, okay? But she also gets input for the eternal son. Now, why would that be? Because all spiritual beings are under the purview of whom? The eternal son, right? So it makes sense that it would be part of the eternal son and the infinite spirit that goes into a seraphim, and then Michael or Jesus becomes a seraphim because he needs the experience of the input of the infinite spirit and the eternal son. Make sense? All right. Now the fifth one is really interesting. The fifth bestowal as an ascending spirit mortal, subject to the will of just the infinite spirit. And why would that be? Because the mortal is the influence of whom? The creator son and the infinite, or the local universe mother spirit, right? They're created by those two beings. It's a dual origin being. So during this bestowal, the creator son has to show the will of just the infinite spirit, because this ascendant mortal is trying to become what? A spirit being by the influence of the infinite spirit. Yeah, Gary?
Isn't that us? If we cross over, etc.
That's us. That's us. When we get to this level, when we get past our Urantia existence, our first spirit level, we will be this fifth bestowal ascending spirit mortal. Right?
Okay. And so in that,
In essence,
I'm extracting that. And then when we're ascending, we will be mostly guided by the infinite spirit.
yes, that's right. And the eternal son, because all spirit beings are guided by the eternal son. Our compass has two. If you think of the compass, on the end of a compass, in this case, instead of having a 1 point pointing, our compass would have 2 points. What would be our 2 points? Our pathway, our thing going out for the compass, the line of the compass would be the infinite spirit. But the 2 points would be what? God the Father and the eternal Son. Because our compass always goes back to whom? God the Father. That's the whole point of paradise. But since all beings become spirit beings, all spirit beings are under the purvey of whom? The eternal
The
Son,
Son.
right? Now, why is this not the case for angels?
They don't
Because their
ascend.
compass points, no, their compass points to their second point of the compass would point to the infinite spirit, because that was their origin, was the infinite spirit. Make sense? They go back to the Father, they go in the ascension plan, they go to the Father, but they have to go to the Father through whom? The infinite spirit first. That's part of the trip through Havana. Okay. Okay. Now notice the 6th bestowal as a Urantia mortal. He's subject to the will of just the eternal Son. You see that? As a Urantia mortal. And there's reason behind this too. Because who is our moral compass in our Urantia existence? That would be the eternal Son, the Spirit of truth. Okay. And the 7th one? Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
I'm a little bit confused. What's the difference between 6 and 7? A Urantia mortal and a mortal of the flesh. What's it?
The mortal
Minus
of the
body?
flesh. Yeah.
Huh?
No, the mortal of the flesh is us, human beings.
That'd be
Okay.
7.
That would be 7. The Urantia mortal is after we die, we become Urantia beings on the mansion worlds. At that point, we're subject to the will of the eternal Son, because
Okay,
that's
now,
our
but
first step towards spirituality.
okay, then the spiritual mortal will be the 5th one.
Right, will be the 5th one. That's when we leave the Urantia existence and go into the spiritual existence. And we do that when we
Oh,
leave
after
the
the
local
5th.
universe.
After the 5th, I think, or something like that, or I'm not sure how it goes, but
Well, right after we stand before Jesus on Salvington, and he says, "Well done, my good and faithful servant," we become first stage spirits. And at that point, you would be under this 5th bestowal point. Make sense?
yeah. So we
That's
have
on the
to
ladder,
earn
how
our,
far you're gonna.
we
We'd
have to
earn
earn our way
our
out.
spiritual. That's right. That's right. And there's no big hurry to get there. It might take 1,000,000 years or 2,000,000 years or 1,000,000,000 years. We don't know. But when we get there, we've got that. Okay. So it's a process. Okay. So the last bestowal that Jesus made, or Michael made as Jesus, he was subject to the will of just the Paradise Father, the universal Father. And remember, during his bestowal, even in the New Testament, he said what over and over and over again? If it be the will of whom?
My
The Father.
My
father.
Father. Right? Because he was living as the will of the Paradise Father. You see how this chart works now?
It's pretty cool.
Yep.
Yeah. Breaks it all down. Okay. Letch, would you take the next one for us, please, sir?
Okay. Though numerous incidental benefits accrue to the various worlds, systems, and constellations, as well as to the different orders of universe intelligences affected and benefited by these bestowals, still they are primarily designed to complete the personal training and universe education of a creator son himself. These bestowals are not essential to the wise, just, and efficient management of a local universe, but they are absolutely necessary to a fair, merciful, and understanding administration of such a creation, teeming with its varied forms of life and its myriads of intelligent but imperfect creatures. Beautiful.
Okay, so he's born perfect, so he don't really need all this different stuff. What does he gain from doing this? Experience.
Passion.
Experience. That's what it's all about.
Wow.
So his experience during these bestowals and different types of beings that he's created makes him more fair, more merciful, and more understanding for the lives that come up through his local universe, because he has been there himself. He knows what it's like. He knows what it's like to be a carpenter. He knows what it's like to be a blacksmith. He knows what it's like to be a computer programmer. You know, all these different things that people do, he already knows what it's like to do that through experience. And all the celestial beings all the way up the ladder, okay? And he also knows the difference between being a human on Urantia or Earth and a human on Venus, or a human on whatever planet somewhere else, because it's different than here. If you live on a planet that you can't breathe the oxygen, it's different than one here where we breathe, we need every breath, okay? So every one of them is different. That's why it says, and it's myriads of intelligent but imperfect creatures. All these creatures are imperfect. Okay, so it trains the creator son, gives them experience, and guess where that experience goes?
To the supreme being.
Right on the money, Rodney, into the supreme being, the collector of all experience. And it goes through whom? The seventh master spirit, which is the master spirit of our seventh super universe. Okay. Which interesting too, because the seventh master spirit is the personality traits of God the Father, God the Son, and the Spirit. So all this experience that the creator sons in the seventh super universe gains the experience of all three parts of the Paradise Trinity too. Interesting, isn't it? How it all works, all fixed together. All right. Gary, you get the next one.
Okay. The Michael sons begin their work of universe organization with a full and just sympathy for the various orders of beings who they have created. They have vast stores of mercy for all these differing creatures, even pity for those,
Differing creatures.
Differing creatures.
Right.
Even pity for those who err and flounder in the selfish mirror of their own production. But such
Mire of their own production. Doesn't that sound like Earth to you?
Good.
Sound like what?
Doesn't that sound like to you?
Humans.
They flounder in their selfish mire of their own production. Doesn't that sound like Earth? All right,
Yeah,
go on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but such endowments of justice and righteousness will not suffice in the estimate of the Ancients of Days. These trying rulers of the super universe will never certify a creator son as universe sovereign until he has really acquired the viewpoint of his own creatures by actual experience in the environment of their existence and as these very creatures themselves. In this way, such sons become intelligent and understanding rulers. They come to know the various groups over which they rule and exercise universe authority. By living experience, they possess themselves of practical mercy, fair judgment, and the patience born of experiential creature existence.
Last sentence, very end of the last sentence. That is why we go through this earthly experience. Makes sense? And the patience born of experiential creature existence. If we did not go through the struggles of life, we would not gain patience from the experiential creature existence. The only way you gain it is you have to experience it. Okay? You know why we're going to be so valuable when we leave this planet? Because this planet is such a mess. That's why we were going to be.
We'll be ahead of the game.
We'll be ahead of the game because we've seen the worst of the worst. We've seen the worst of the worst in politics. We've seen the worst of the worst in religion. We've seen the worst in the worst of philosophy. And we've even seen the worst of the worst in science, haven't we? I mean, in all of them.
Yeah.
You know, we've had more bad things than we've had good things in this world. Think about it. And because of this experience, we become more valuable for the next life. So humble, right? So think of it this way. When you wake up on the mansion world, one of your first assignments is these people coming in and they say, Gary, Neil, Rodney, Letch, Diane, y'all all come with me. You're going to teach these stupid little people coming from planet X down here a little bit about life. And you have the experience to do so. Okay?
I wonder if I'll
that's
get
what
to
you
be the
have to do.
bully.
I hope not. I hope through this patience is born through this, so you can treat people and teach people with dignity. Okay? I have always tried to teach people with dignity in these classes. I get off kilter sometimes. I'll have to admit, it happens to me. But my wife straightens me back up when I do. That's what quietly. You know, after the meeting, she goes, "What were you thinking?" No, she doesn't do that ever. She really doesn't. But I think it to myself, because sometimes the things that comes out of my mouth comes out of my heart instead of my head, right? And it's hard to see. It really is. Think of it this way. How long have you gone through life and you think, these poor idiots, what in the world are they thinking, right? I mean, life could be so beautiful if you love one another, help each other, love God, love each other. I mean, this could be a virtual paradise to live in, but we create most of our own problems. Think of it this way. When we send somebody to Congress and they steal money and they lie to us and they do what they want to do instead of what they're sent there for, who do you think it hurts? It hurts people because they're not your representative, but it hurts them even worse because they become stuck and mired in this sin, and their selfish own mire of non-production makes them horrible as people. Makes sense? So what's the solution to it? How do we fix it? We teach our kids a moral standard. We teach them how to determine when people are out for their good or the good of all. And that is very hard to do, right? It really is. But to do that, we have to become what? Responsible citizens ourselves. Make sense? So the Creator's sons gain this experience as the very creatures themselves, so they go through this themselves. Don't you think a creator son at one time or another has had the opportunity to be a politician or a leader in a country or all these things at one time or another? So they've gained that experience. They know how to react to every situation by this. All right. And it's interesting that they say the triune rulers of the super universe. Who are they talking about there?
Ancients
The
of
ancients of days.
God, Father,
Right.
Son.
That's right. All right. Let's see who's next. Diane, you're up again. Here.
The local universe of Nebadon is now ruled by a creator son who has completed his service of bestowal. He reigns in just and merciful supremacy over all the vast realms of his evolving and perfecting universe. Michael of Nebadon is the 121st bestowal of the eternal Son upon the universe of time and space. And he began the organization of your local universe about 400 billion years ago. Michael made ready for his first bestowal adventure about the time Urantia was taking on its present form 1 billion years ago. His bestowals have occurred about 150 million years apart, the last taking place on Urantia 1900 years ago. I will now proceed to unfold the nature and character of these bestowals as fully as my commission permits.
As fully as my commission permits. Did y'all see that?
Mm-hmm.
So they were allowed to reveal things to us only on a certain level because the commission from Uversa was given specific orders of what they could reveal and what they cannot reveal. So what does that tell us? That tells us in another 1,000 years, we will need what? A new revelation, because the information that we learn has grown. And at that point, the information needs to be what? Updated. Makes sense? Another interesting thing about this paragraph is the 611,121st. So Michael was not the first creator son out there to be assigned a local universe, was he? He was 611,121st in line. So what does that tell us? That means our local universe is almost new in the scheme of things. That's why we live in a system that only has 619 inhabited planets so far. We still got 300 and something planets to go before we reach our 1,000 planets for our local system. So we are a fairly young universe. And it's interesting that Michael has already finished all his bestowals and considered sovereign of his local universe before we're 2/3 finished with our local universe. Makes sense? So he's prepared himself very well. The other thing here is this. His bestowals occurred about 150 million years apart. It's quite a long time, isn't it? And it was only 1900 years ago, 2000 now, that Michael came to our planet for his final bestowal. So you think that he's getting in any big hurry to come back soon?
Doesn't sound like it.
Probably not,
Right.
right?
I
So
would
if you're
think he
looking
would
for Jesus to, yeah, if you're looking for him to show up on the doorstep tomorrow, don't hold your breath, right? Might be a while yet. But you still have to live your life in case of it as if he does, don't you? And how do we do that? God gave us the answer already. Be ye perfect, even as I am perfect. Okay? So by trying to live your life as perfectly as you possibly can, loving your neighbors, loving God, doing what you think is right, then you're on the right track. Let me tell you a little story. Me and my wife went to a funeral this weekend, and I was asked to officiate at the funeral, give a little talk and stuff, which I did. But during this funeral, I thought it was best that his sons and people that knew him talked as much as possible. I said as little as I could, which is hard for me to do. My wife knows. So I wrote it out so I wouldn't get long-winded, which is probably a good idea. But when his family started talking about this individual, which I've known for 10 years, he was a veteran, Purple Heart recipient, veteran just like I was, known him for years at McDonald's, had breakfast with him, did his wife's funeral 2 years ago. And so when they started talking about this man, you got a picture of a man that tried to live his life as perfect as any human being could. And that's the truth. So it just shows us that if we try hard enough, the way people perceive of us in life will show our perfection. Make sense? So that's a goal for us to all achieve. It really is. All right.
And his children too.
And his children. Yeah.
They were amazing.
Yeah.
Just amazing children.
Raise your children right, they'll follow in your footsteps, right?
And they have.
And they have. Let me see what's the next one is here. I tell you what, we're at 6:56. I'm going to hold this first bestowal. We're going to go through each one of them. I know we've done this in paper 119 before, but the purpose of this series of talks is to do what? Show the meaning of life of Jesus. And these bestowals are part of the meaning of life of Jesus. So we're going to go through every single one of them in great detail as we can. And when we're done, hopefully we'll have a better picture of Jesus's mission on this earth. And I guarantee you it wasn't to take away your sins. Okay. I know the Baptists just hate it when I say that. So, but that's the truth. If you want to hear the truth, come here. If you don't want, go somewhere else. Right. Okay. So let's have a little prayer for tonight, and then we'll quit for tonight. And thank you. You know, I don't say this enough, but thank you for all y'all who listen to this at home. We're getting lots of listens through Vimeo and Facebook and YouTube, and we got getting quite a bit of people watching this series. So that makes me really happy that people are still interested in Jesus. That makes me really thrilled. So let's say a little prayer and we'll quit for tonight, and we'll go from there. So, dear, would you like to pray for us tonight? Let me mute my thing.
Dearest God, we come to you in humility, and we are so grateful for this book, and so very grateful for Roger's understanding and time that he spent to understand and to meditate and pray, so that he may be an excellent teacher as he is and will continue to be. In all things, we give thanks for our families, for our loved ones, for people that we meet along the way, and just appreciate and genuinely whatever we share and however they share with us. May we encourage people to follow your word, to study this book as much as possible, and to grow exponentially, so that when we leave here, that we are deeply prepared for what is to come. And we give all thanks and glory to you. In your name, Jesus Christ, Michael of Nebadon. Amen.
Amen. You're muted, Roger.
Well, thank you for joining us anyway. All those that didn't hear it, stop the recording.